made companies. Nowadays you can't always tell by the name of the company where they come from. I want to talk about some of the highlights, 7 to be exact, since we're not doing 12 days of Christmas, right? But 7 highlights from your gift guide. It's a 50-state made gift guide. So let's talk about some of those states.
Yeah,
Let's start in the state where the Big Apple is, and that is the state of New York. There's some very comfortable things there and something everybody needs and wants at the holiday, even if it's not a gift, just to look good in front of the family on Christmas morning.
Yeah. Well, it's a great story, and it's Elizabeth Cotton is the name of the company, and the name of the founder herself is Liz Cotton, and she now has a married name, but her middle name was Cotton, so it works out pretty well to be in the fashion business.
Yeah.
So Liz had been a fashion designer at a big company, and found herself looking for a comfortable but also kind of interesting pair of pajamas to wear to her first visit to her future in-laws, and was striking out. And she was like, this is ridiculous. This is a market failure. They're either very high end or very low. There wasn't something for her. And so she was like, when I get back, I'm going to start a company and this is what I'm going to do. And so,
well, no, because you're right. As a woman, I can say your choices are between looking like the brawny paper towel guy or Victoria's Secret model. And neither one of them, one of them's like a little too revealing. And the other one is sort of like, why not just wear, no offense to the brawny paper towel guy, but, lumberjack shirts are cool, but we don't all have to wear flannel lumberjack print pajamas.
They have their place. You're right, but not. Yeah, exactly. So, so she created this company, and it's been very successful. And called Elizabeth Cotton, and they make good pajamas. They're, I would say, kind of mid-market in terms of price, and they're well reviewed. I mean, she's gotten some amazing reviews from fashion magazines, and she obviously sells direct, and made a point of making these pajamas in the Garment Center in New York City, which a generation ago, so much stuff was made there, and it was the center of fashion in the United States. And there's still a lot of fashion designers in New York, but the size of the garment district has shrunk a little bit, but there's still this vibrant community there. And I can think of some other designers who still make in the Garment Center, but Liz Cotton is one of them. And so it's this great story of a fantastic entrepreneur who saw a gap in the market, filled it, and had the intent to make it in the United States. And she's great. She was part of a digital conference we did a few weeks ago with a few of these makers. And she was like, I love having it in the Garment Center because if I need to change something, it's literally right there. And it's not 12 hours away via the phone, 12 time zones. My products aren't going to get stuck on a boat somewhere, and I have quality control. And so it was a great story, and great gifts for any woman, whether it's a loved one or someone you want to become a loved one, or just a friend who's in need of some great, comfy and fashionable pajamas.
Yeah, most definitely. Featured in Vogue and Style, Oprah Magazine. Been in the Garment District since 2005, manufactured at the same 2 American family-owned factories. And you're right, one of my favorite pieces of art in New York City is the Orthodox Jewish man at his sewing machine. And my great-grandfather was who's Jewish. I'm half Jewish, like your kids. I'm like only opposite. It's my father's Jewish, my mother's not. But my great-grandfather was a cobbler, and so he had a sewing, he had a sewing machine, but he had started out as a blacksmith. And then when people stopped using horse and buggies, instead of making shoes for horses, he made shoes for people. So when I see that, I think of him because he was Orthodox and he wore a yarmulke, and I just love that. And it's there because that is, and that's a big part of our history as a nation. Textiles, right? Manufacturing and textiles in the Garment District. It's just, it's a beautiful story. And it's nice to hear this because hopefully there can be a resurgence there. And she's one of the companies to start that. It's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Obviously, it's never going to look like it did in the 50s or the 40s or whatever. There's lots of, but the point that Liz makes and that others make is that there should at least be a choice. If you want an American-made option that's high quality, you should be able to have one. And
Right.
they feel so passionately about that, and it's amazing to see.
Okay, so guys, Elizabeth Cotton is the name of the pajama company. You want American-made pajamas? Buy them there. And pajamas are a great gift because everybody pretty much needs a new pair every year or so, right? Especially if you wear them over and over and over. I've just been chatting too much, so we will continue our list. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other states and things made in states like Washington, Arkansas, Colorado, and others. Scott is also a consumer of some of these products and can attest not just about the company and the ownership of the products themselves. We'll talk about that with Scott Paul and more right after this. In the meantime, check out the website. You can find the AAM's 50 State 2021 Made in America Holiday Gift Guide. The neat thing about this is you can buy products from any state online, but if you happen to live in the state and near these companies, if they have a storefront, why not go in and show support to your local neighbor who is an American-made small business owner? Help them out, especially in light of this pandemic. Go to the website, AmericanManufacturing.org, on Twitter. Follow them at Keep It Made in USA, and follow Scott at Scott Paul AAM. Back after this.
If you miss Leslie on TV this week, catch up at lesliemarshallshow.com.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my
Awesome.
boys.
Thank you.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or three.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey sis, missed you this morning. Kim told me you weren't feeling well, so I'm just doing a self-care check.
Oh, thank you, friend.
How you doing?
Girl, listen, my energy was so low because I didn't eat breakfast when I got up, so I had to miss virtual yoga with y'all.
Trust me, I understand.
But I'm doing much better now that I've eaten, so I'm back on track.
Great. In that case, let's get some steps in tonight. I'll come over and we can walk around the lake.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being in my business, too. Now, let me get in yours. Did you check your blood pressure today?
I did that and my squats, okay?
Okay.
High blood pressure is not going to be my friend if I can help it. See you at 6?
Let's get it. See you then.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Check in on one another and be a part of a healthy blood pressure movement. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org. Brought to you by the Release the Pressure Coalition and the Ad Council.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1944. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt rescinded Executive Order 9066. It had forcibly relocated over 120,000 Japanese Americans into internment camps. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the government considered Japanese Americans a national security threat. By 1942, many were given less than a week's notice to sell and store all property. Whole families were rounded up and taken away to desolate areas in the west and southwest of the United States. Up to this point, many Japanese Americans in California were employed in the agricultural industry, some as tenant farmers. They were responsible for 40% of all produce grown in that state, whose crops were valued at $40 million annually. Over 6,000 farms consisting of 200,000 acres were confiscated. Once interned, they were subjected to dire dire living conditions with little in the way of running water, sanitary facilities, or medical care. They were subject to forced labor in the construction of camp buildings and cultivation of near barren lands. The government hoped to make the camps self-sufficient. In Poston, Arizona, they were made to build the infrastructure for Colorado River Tribe's reservation in order to consolidate other tribes onto the land. When Japanese Americans were finally released, most found their stored belongings stolen and their homes, jobs, and farms confiscated and redistributed. After the war, they continued to face violence, job and housing shortages, and racial discrimination. Ronald Reagan would sign the Civil Liberties Act in 1988. It acknowledged that internment was based on, quote, race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. The act served as a formal apology and sought to distribute billions in reparations.
We are back. I'm Leslie Marshall. Welcome back. And welcome back, Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Follow him on Twitter at Scott Paul AAM. Follow the AAM at Keep It Made in USA. Speaking of Keep It Made in USA, we're talking about highlights, 7 to be exact. We just finished one from AAM's 2021 50-state Made in America holiday gift guide. You have got to check this out. It's very helpful, and it's great to support companies that have local American-made goods. We talked about Elizabeth Cotton, Pajamas, in the state of New York. Scott, thank you for holding. Welcome back. Let's go to Seattle, Washington now, or Washington State, and talk to us about a Seattle native there who has a company that is definitely growing, because when I saw this, I knew this company, and I'm not a big I don't own a lot of candles, but I definitely think they make great gifts, and I love to smell them at stores. So tell us about this candle company, Suki's Candles.
Well, first of all, that's so great that you know it. It's Suki's Candles.
I do. When I saw it, I swear to God, when I saw it, I'm like, I know that company, because
so awesome.
Some people just know Yankee or some of the other, names that are more prevalent.
Yeah. So Suki Jefferson is the founder of this, and again, we had an event a couple weeks ago, and she was a part of it, and her products are amazing. That lots of different aromas. She experiments with them. She does vegan soy-based candles. They're all made in Seattle. She has a partnership now with the Seattle Seahawks, and they have an official scent, which is not locker room, Leslie. It is
good to know.
This fur smell. So she's a great entrepreneur. And she's one of these people, her story is interesting. She had no background in candles or anything like this, but she was a do-it-yourselfer, okay? And she had made soap, and then she started making candles, and she's like, I'm pretty good at this. And her friends encouraged her to do it. And so she had been in LA and then moved back to Seattle, and this company is growing. They sell direct. They're also in dozens of stores around the country now, and she has these great local partnerships as well. And so again, what a great gift for someone who, if they like a certain aroma or think they will, it's a very thoughtful gift with a reasonable price point too, Leslie.
Yeah, the other thing is a few things, and here in LA, it definitely matters, and it matters in other places. These are vegan soy candles, and a lot of people like soy candles because they're not as harmful to the environment. They're actually not as harmful to us either. There are no toxins, additives, dyes, or pollutants. She's traveled the world, takes scents from places like Brazil and Tanzania. And we got to mention one of the Black-owned businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, and they do made to order. So if you want your own scent or you want to combine stuff, they do made to order. So I love it. As a matter of fact, I wrote down during the break her company because I have a couple of gifts left, and I'm definitely going to her website.
All right, well, glad we could help.
It may not make it in time for Christmas, but at least we could try, right? Let's head to Arkansas. There's a Swedish company, and they're an international manufacturer, but they actually, somebody from Sweden is making products in America, right? They have a production facility right in Nashville, in Nashville, Arkansas, not Tennessee.
Yeah. So Husqvarna is, I guess if you're a chainsaw aficionado, you might know Husqvarna, but
I did not know this one. I will be honest.
Probably an unfamiliar brand for a lot of folks. But yeah, they have a manufacturing facility in the United States, in Nashville, Arkansas, and they not only make electric mowers. These electric mowers are automated, and so they're like Roombas, and so for your lawn. And so instead of cleaning your floor like a Roomba does, you just set it loose and it cleans it mows your lawn.
Scott, for those people that are off today and they're doing happy hour earlier and they're on the recliner listening to us, somebody just got off the recliner who has a big yard. They're like, a Roomba? I don't have to sit on that thing, or I don't have to push my mower around. Come on.
Yeah. They can sit back in their chair with their beer, and they can watch their lawn being mowed by a Husqvarna. It's a pretty
I want
cool
one
thing.
just to watch it.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a great gift for those people that have everything, or if you're a kid wanting to buy something for your parents, especially your dad. Right, that's something that could be helpful.
Or an entrepreneurial kid who wants to mow lawns and get paid for it, but doesn't want to schlep around all the time. So you can.
Yeah, so he can watch Instagram and TikTok while he is getting paid for it, right? I want to go to Colorado. Yeah. This is a company I've also heard of.
Yeah.
And the reason my husband is an athletic guy like you. And this company is called Polar Bottle. I understand you own multiple bottles, so you can make you can have a consumer view, not just the president of AAM view. This is really a good gift for people who ride bikes. I know you do, and other people who are weekend warriors outdoors.
Yeah. Great for stowing in your hiking backpack or on your bike. The Polar Bottles are plastic, but they're BPA free. They're made sustainably in Boulder, Colorado. They have been for a couple of decades. They're often stocked in outdoor and sports stores, like in REI. At least the last time I looked, you could find them there.
That's where I've seen them.
Yeah, and you can find them other places. They are well designed, well built. They're durable. They're really cool. They're proudly made in Colorado, and they make a big point about that. And so,
isn't it true that not just are they made, but all of the parts, everything involved in that bottle, are made in Boulder? Even if they don't have something made in Boulder or Colorado, they still use American-made and American-sourced parts, right?
Yeah, it is. It's all domestic. It's and they have sustainable processes. And yes, it is plastic, but it is something that is durable, that is recyclable. In the event you find you no longer need it. And I just know, one of my sons plays soccer, and he's had multiple generations of Polar Bottles throughout, and it's just we have a whole cabinet of them. They're again great, and if you happen to own like a small business or something like that, you can customize them as well and get some branding on them. So it's a kind of a cool gift, particularly for someone, Leslie, as you noted, who is an outdoors person or likes to bike.
And if you could personalize them and put your name on them, it's great for the kids going to school, right? Especially when we got a pandemic and we don't want them sharing things, right? So it's a great one. Let's go to District of Columbia.
Yeah.
I love this. These are holiday cards. This is very unique because they actually use their talent pool includes homeless men and women. This just amazing. This floored me when I read it. I didn't know about this.
Yeah, this is a remarkable story. And it's called Second Story Cards. And it is DC based. And DC, like a lot of metro areas, has, and unfortunately, a large number of people who are unhoused. And so the entrepreneurs behind this company reached out, and a lot of the unhoused are gifted in terms of their artistic design, and so it's a really nice synergy, and you can find these cards. It's cool. There's like a Made in DC shop, and they have them. They're like for tourists and for locals at different parts around the city. But they're featured there. You can buy them direct. I know when my mother-in-law first saw this is the first thing she went to and got a bunch of, because she's a note writer, but she's like, what a great story behind this.
And not just that, 15% of each sale, 15% go to the unhoused individual, but 10% of all profits donated to homeless-focused nonprofits. It's just amazing. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up our list of 7, and we're going to talk about some other things because it's the 20th anniversary of China's WTO Ascension. And we'll talk more about that and hear your statement as president of the AAM. Scott Paul, president of the AAM, back after this. Go to their website, AmericanManufacturing.org. Check out that list of made in American companies and products if you got some more Christmas shopping to do. We'll be back.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from?
Okay, thanks.
Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen.
In a world that's clogged and choking with a massive overdose of plastic trash, you'll be heartened to learn that governments and industries are teaming up to respond forcefully to this planetary crisis. Unfortunately, their response has been to engage in a global race to make more plastic stuff and to force poor countries to become dumping grounds for plastic garbage. Leading this Kafkaesque greed fest are such infamous plunderers and polluters as ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, and other petrochemical profiteers. With fossil fuel profits crashing, the giants are rushing to convert more of their oversupply of oil into plastic. But where to send the monstrous volumes of waste that will result? The industry's chief lobbyist outfit, the American Chemistry Council, looked around last year and suddenly shouted, "Eureka! There's Africa!" In particular, they're targeting Kenya to become a plastics hub for global trade in waste. However, Kenyans have an influential community of environmental activists who've enacted some of the world's toughest bans on plastic pollution. To bypass this inconvenient local opposition, the dumpers are resorting to an old corporate power play, free trade. Their lobbyists are pushing an autocratic trade agreement that would ban Kenyan officials from passing their own laws or rules that interfere with trade in plastic waste. Trying to hide their ugliness, the plastic profiteers created a PR front group called Alliance to End Public Waste. But hello, it's not public waste. Exxon and other funders of the alliance make, promote, and profit from the mountains of destructive trash they now demand we clean up. This is Jim Hightower saying the real problem is not waste, but plastic itself. Rather than subsidizing more of the stuff, we should seek out and encourage people who are developing real solutions and alternatives.
We are back, we being Leslie Marshall and our guest Scott Paul, president of the AAM, the Alliance for American Manufacturing. They have a great AAM 50 State 2021 Made in America holiday gift guide. We're talking about 7 of the highlights, 7 states that have some great companies there. And we certainly wish you would check it out. Do so. Go to their website, AmericanManufacturing.org. Also follow them on Twitter at Keep It Made in USA. Scott, thank you for holding. Welcome back. Let's head to the state of Indiana in the Midwest. And in Indiana is in another city that is in another state, but it sounds another state, and that's Syracuse, not New York, Syracuse, Indiana. Tell us what they make there and what company does it.
Yeah, and it's not Hollywood, it's Pollywood.
Yeah, I saw that.
Is the name of the company. So yeah, as a Hoosier native, I know Syracuse well. It's in the northern part of Indiana, but this is a cool company with a great story. They take plastic that was destined for the trash, and they reuse it, and they make these beautiful, durable pieces of outdoor furniture. They have chairs, chase lounges, Adirondacks, gliders, a lot of stuff in very vivid colors, I will say. And I'm just thinking back a couple of years ago, when we moved into our new home, we were looking to get some Adirondack chairs for an outdoor area, and I mentioned this, and we found some beautiful, vivid red and blue chairs, and they were so cool. And I love that it's sustainable. That this is stuff that would have gone into a landfill somewhere, but can be reused. And I love that it's made in America as well. And like all the companies on this list, and you're right, you're running out of shipping time before Christmas, but none of these companies have supply chain bottlenecks because they're all in the United States. They're not in a shipping container.
Say that again, Scott. No supply chain bottleneck. Are you listening,
That's
America?
right.
No supply chain bottleneck. You want to get something and get it actually overnight when you order it and pay for it overnight. You can get it.
Exactly. And so it's but what a great story from a sustainability and from just a creativity point of view. Just some really cool stuff there, Leslie.
And actually, it's so funny you say that. A few years back, I live in a high wind area. Today, as a matter of fact, my chairs outside are blown all over the place.
Ooh.
And it's better to have plastic than wood because wood smashes and you get splinters and things like that. But in it for me, especially if you're going to have them, reuse, make these, because they're being environmentally aware and conserving. Really hard to find like nice colors. Right.
Yeah.
When you're looking for Adirondack. So it's interesting that you mentioned the colors. Everybody should check it out. When I saw the name, I looked at it. I hadn't heard of them. Really nice stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't, not everybody thinks, oh, this is something recycled, Let's head last on our list of 7 to Mississippi. A lot of people watch Ben and Erin Napier on HGTV. I am somebody who watches not them, but I do like some HGTV. And they're dedicated to Made in America products. Tell us about the product that they like in a Mississippi shop.
Yeah, so they, for anybody who watches HGTV and knows their show Hometown, know that they, renovate these old houses in Laurel, Mississippi, and I think they're doing town takeovers now on another show as well to do some renovations. I've had the opportunity to chat with them a couple of times, and they have a whole retail store called Laurel Mercantile, which has a physical location in Laurel, but also an online presence. And you can think of it as a sundry store, Leslie. They have everything. They have kitchenwares. They have room scents. They have wall hangings. They have so much stuff. And they make a point, and I've talked to Ben about this in particular. He's a craftsman, and he really does value the Made in America aspect of all of this. And he said they've been approached by lots of folks who want to license their merchandise and make it in China, and they've said no to them. They believe very strongly in this, and so it's a store. And I promise anyone who looks at it is going to find something you're going to say, oh yeah, I know a gift to give exactly for this person. There's just a remarkable amount of stuff there with a little bit of the Southern charm added in.
Yeah. One of the things I have to say that I like and I commend them, I had the opportunity to, go big or make more money and design things and renovate things outside of their community. And the whole reason they started this is they wanted to beautify their neighborhood. And Laurel is their town. And that's what they want to do. And they help people locally. And that's nice because it's tempting, right? We all know it's tempting to get big and to go really big. That's a great list. There's so many more, and I hope people check it out on the website, like I said. This past Saturday marked the 20th anniversary of China's official entry into the World Trade Organization. It's an ominous anniversary for America's working class. There was that China shock leading to millions of lost jobs, tens of thousands of closures of factories like those in the garment district, and devastated communities, industrial communities throughout the country. But you say, as president of the AAM, that with the right policy, this anniversary can also mark a turning point. I want to read what you said, Scott, if it's okay, and then you can talk about it. It's common nowadays to point out how badly America's political elites got China's entry into the WTO wrong, but it's astounding to reflect on just how wrong they were. We were told that China would open its market to U.S. companies to sell their products. Instead, China has largely left its markets closed, and those who are able to do business there must hand over their intellectual property in return. We were told that China would play by the rules of global trade. Instead, time and time again, China has broken those rules, largely without consequence, costing millions of American jobs. You go on and on and on. I want to stop there, and I'm going to continue because I want people to hear what you said. I want to touch upon that. I want to talk about China opening its market to U.S. companies to sell their products, how they left the market closed, how they broke the rules, how there aren't consequences, and the end result, which are, like you said, the cost of American jobs, millions.
Yeah. This decision, 20 years ago, that both leaders in Beijing made, but also global leaders, to permit China into the kind of the community of nations that are supposed to follow global trade rules. I was skeptical at the time, I will say, Leslie. I didn't think it would work. I still have a big poster that says no blank check for China, because that's kind of what it was. And that's what it ended up being, unfortunately, is that, the Chinese Communist Party had these growth ambitions, and they were able to carry them out when they got basically tariff-free access to a lot of markets, including the United States, and broke the rules along the way. Still have massive government subsidies for their industries, still do a lot of what's called dumping in trade parlance, where they sell products at below cost in foreign markets to capture market share. And unfortunately, what that means is that factories close down in those countries, and workers are left without jobs. We estimate in the United States alone, something like 3.7 million workers in manufacturing lost their jobs as a result of this. This was a huge swath of American manufacturing when you consider there's like 12 or 13 million people employed in it. That's just a stunning loss of capacity, tens of thousands of factories as well. And unfortunately, everybody missed this from a national political level. Clinton was all for this. Bush was all for it. Obama, kind of naive about his approach. Trump tried a few things, kind of flailed around a little bit. At the time, Biden, 20 years ago, was wrong about this. I think he's woken up, and we can certainly talk about that. But there, at a national political level, everybody got this wrong.
Yep. I want to continue. You said we were told that China would liberalize, moving from a planned economy and authoritarian state to a free market and a democracy. And instead, China's used central economic planning to dominate global industries and is now exporting its totalitarian model around the world. People are arguably less free, so true, in China now than they were 20 years ago. Something that is certainly true in places like Hong Kong and Xinjiang, where China's government is overseeing a genocide. Yes, it was a mistake for the U.S. to vote to allow China to join the WTO, but while we can't go back to 2001, we can begin to right the wrongs of 20 years ago. And you talk about leaders in Washington. You say leaders in Washington, including President Biden, lawmakers on Capitol Hill, must now respond with a smart industrial policy to help the U.S. compete globally, and you go on. How can we right those wrongs?
Yeah.
And you have less than a minute, but we can let you continue after the break.
It takes a combination of getting our own house in order. Infrastructure was part of that, becoming more competitive, boosting in industries of the future like semiconductors, electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, all very smart things to do. It seems the Congress and the president want to get it done. Infrastructure is done. That's good. We also need to hold China accountable. And we're stronger when we have other nations with us. And that's what Trump missed. So you have Europe, you have Japan, you have the United States. If we can get an alliance that leans on China a little more, we can insulate ourselves against some of this economic damage as well.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. We'll continue to talk about this and other issues. Like I said, Scott is president of the AAM. The AAM folks have put together a great 50-state 2020-2021 Made in America Holiday Gift Guide. Check it out at AmericanManufacturing.org. Also, at Keep It Made in USA. Follow them on Twitter. We'll be back after this.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. We show up differently, worship differently, and have found new ways to express our love and support to family and friends. But now there are vaccines, and they are the first step that lets us get back into the things we miss most, like spreading the word without spreading concern, girls tripping instead of solo sipping, brunching instead of late night munching, and talking smack with a side of mac and cheese. It's okay to have questions about COVID-19 vaccines.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
Can I trust it?
What about pre-existing conditions?
Now get the facts. Visit GetVaccineAnswers.org so you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey, welcome to Code WAC, a podcast on America's WAC healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. So what can be done at the community level to reduce violence and trauma? What role can healthcare play in stemming violence and building resilience? We recently spoke to Dr. Howard Pinder-Hughes, a sociology professor at the University of California, San Francisco, and vice chair of the Prevention Institute's board of directors. Dr. Pinder-Hughes, how does your work align with health insurance reforms like Medicare for All?
First and foremost, Medicare for All would provide a source of the promotion of health that it shifts the focus of how healthcare is provided at a community level. I mean, where we all want to go to is healthcare that focuses on promoting health rather than treating illness. It's great if we treat illness and injury when they occur, but what we want to do is prevent it. It's not a lucrative direction from the standpoint of the finances of a health corporation, but from the standpoint of a community, from the standpoint of a society, that's the direction we need to go. Single payer and Medicare for all, whatever we call it, moves us in that direction. We just came through a pandemic where the implications of the lack of healthcare or the existence of poor healthcare inequalities was driven home 1,000 times. And that over the last 2 years has been one of the largest sources of trauma, both at an individual and community level, that we've had over the last 2 years. If we had Medicare for all, that would shift and change the dynamics.
Get the full Code WAC story on progressivevoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
We are back. Scott Paul is our guest, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Please check out their website, AmericanManufacturing.org, and you can check out their 50-state 2021 Made in America Holiday Gift Guide. It's very helpful. Support American-made products and American-made businesses. And Keep It Made in USA, at Keep It Made in USA on Twitter. You follow them there, more information as well. And follow Scott, a lot of information on his site as well, at Scott Paul, AAM. Speaking of information, we were speaking with Scott about the 20th anniversary of China's WTO, World Trade Organization, Ascension. And you were talking about before the break, how we can build back our working class, how we can chart the course for an American-made future. Can you tell us, because I know there are some key facts, and I want to hear some of those about the U.S.-China relationship since that time, since 2001. Jobs that were lost, the trade complaints, how many of those that have been filed against it and against them. The list just goes on. Can you share some of those with us, Scott?
I'd be happy to. And I'd also point out that there's been obviously a human cost to all of this.
Right.
You mentioned internally the oppression of minorities, religious minorities in China has continued against Tibetans, against Uyghurs. Democratic norms in Hong Kong were completely eviscerated. And so there's been this stunning kind of authoritarianism, insularity that's been generated when I think the optimists were like, well, maybe China will democratize as we trade more. Didn't happen. All right. So, but some real numbers here too. 3.7 million American jobs lost. That's an estimate from the Economic Policy Institute. We've also seen a trade deficit climb into the upper hundreds of millions of dollars. It may one day hundreds of billions of dollars with China sometimes, and that's from it started at a fairly low level 20 years ago. So we've just seen exponential growth in the trade deficit. We've also seen 47 unfair trade cases filed by WTO members against China during the short time they've been there. And given that our listeners don't need to know much about the WTO other than know it's dysfunctional, and even to take a case takes a lot of effort. So the fact that this was done 47 times indicates what kind of a problem there is in terms of just in the steel sector. Which is important from a national security perspective. China rose from being a bit player to now producing 55% of all the steel in the world. This has come at a tremendous cost. We've lost jobs in the United States. Europe has lost jobs as well. We've lost capacity. Carbon pollution in China, as a result, has gone up and up and up. China's been the world's leading emitter of carbon since 2006. And unfortunately, it shows no signs of abating. And so none of these data are good. I mean, consumers may look around and say, well, I see all sorts of made in China stuff from Walmart or Amazon or whatever. And they may like on some level paying a low price for a T-shirt, but it's come at a high cost. And it will come at a high cost to them because it's meant wages have been depressed because when those factory workers are out of work, they join the labor pool. They're joining the competition for those other jobs. And that pushes down wages. And so none of these are positive developments. We need that change in policy. We need to invest here at home. We need a tougher trade policy. I do think President Biden recognizes that. I think the Congress recognizes that on a bipartisan basis now. So at least the only helpful thing in all of this, Leslie, has been there's been this flip. The U.S. international business community still doesn't understand it. They're still with Beijing, like Nike, Apple, all those companies, still with Beijing. But I think Biden, I think Congress understand this to some degree, and can help. They're not going to correct 20 years of flaws, but at least they can steer the ship as to where it needs to start going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This blew my mind that in 2018, the total U.S. trade deficit with China was $419.5 billion. And a large amount of that is in two areas, computer and electronic parts.
Yeah.
Just amazing. I mean, that's if I were a CEO or an entrepreneur, I might be looking at that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity. The problem is for a leader like Tim Cook, who's the head of Apple, it's easy for them to produce in China because workers are exploitable. There's no consequences to environmental degradation. They have to make a deal with the Chinese government. But once they have that system, that production system, they're kind of addicted to it. And there is another way. And it strikes me like, particularly for a company like Apple that's so sophisticated, that makes beautiful, functional well-designed products, they can't figure out how to do a factory in the United States. I'm like, come on, give me a break.
Right.
It's too easy for them to do this, and there's no cost to them. And so the cost has come to our workers, our communities, the environment, people in China. But if you're an Apple shareholder, if you're Tim Cook, things have been great for them. But the rest of us have been left behind in this relationship, and it's time that we turn that around.
Yeah, you had mentioned in the last segment and just now, you talk about the people of China, these workers who are also, largely being exploited. China ranks 107th in the Heritage Foundation's Economic Freedom Index. So in other words, they're mostly unfree. They're not free. You also mentioned the government, right? And 73% of China's non-state-owned companies, that's almost 2 million firms, are under the influence of the Chinese Communist Party. So when Americans are like, commie, or we hate commie, whatever, right? Well, no, you don't. If you're buying stuff made in China, because you're buying stuff, most likely 2/3 of the stuff you're buying pretty much is under the influence, it comes under the influence of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
Yeah, and this is an important distinction because this does not happen in the United States. There are big swaths of industry in China that are directly owned by the government. Okay, and those that aren't, the companies like you think Alibaba or others are now becoming even more heavily influenced by the Chinese government, and they either have ties to China's military or to Chinese Communist Party leaders. Or if they had any notions or greater ambitions, they've been reined in by Beijing, and so the economy, rather than becoming more market-based, more open, more free, is becoming more centralized, more state-driven. Even the private sector firms that once existed there, and so you can't. And I'm just saying, if you're an American entrepreneur, if you're a productive American worker, you can compete on a level playing field. You're happy to, but that's not a level playing field. When you have the massive power of the state behind you, that you don't have to make a profit. That's not your motivation. And if you're just after market share, you can undercut the competition, and that doesn't do anybody good. And they're adding a tremendous amount of carbon into the atmosphere as they've grown their industrial behemoth here. So we have a lot of work to do, Leslie.
Yeah, when you talk about the environment, they're the world's largest annual greenhouse gas emitter. They've held that rank since 2006. Their energy-related emissions have increased by more than 80% between 2005 and 2019. Ours, in comparison, have fell, thankfully, by over 15%. And also, talk to us about intellectual property theft by Chinese firms. 1 in 5 North American companies have been victims of this kind of theft, correct?
Yeah. It's which again is a stunning number when you consider the scope and breadth of this. And there's another estimate that shows about $600 billion is lost by U.S. companies in this intellectual property theft. And what it means, basically, one of two things: either it's just being outright stolen, which has happened, or number two, they've had to make joint ventures with Chinese firms, and then the technology gets transferred, and then they get shown the door. So there are several versions of this, and there's pirating. I mean, if you have a great idea, and I talk to a lot of these entrepreneurs in the United States. If you have a great idea, you may see it show up on an Alibaba in a month, or now Amazon in a month. You're like, how the heck did someone get that and is doing that? And you can't reach them. That's the problem. The corporation is in China, and so it's a big problem. I think there's recognition of this, but we now have to tackle that problem in a very straightforward way, Leslie.
Yeah, and when we talk about workers' rights being violated, or no guarantee of rights, I mean, they're exposed to physical violence, they're exposed to murder, and that's no surprise. Look at what's happened to over 1.5 million Uyghurs. I want everybody to check out Scott's piece. He's written a great opinion piece on this topic at Newsweek.com. The piece is titled, "The U.S. Has Mismanaged China Policy for 20 Years. Time to Fix It." Can you say in a sentence about the Senate passing legislation to ban imports from China's Xinjiang region?
It's a good step in the right direction and a long overdue recognition. And so I'm glad Congress took that step. So now companies have to certify basically that their products weren't made with Uyghur labor. It's going to be very hard for them to do.
Yes, and it's bipartisan, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Unanimous in the Senate.
Yeah, how could Marjorie Taylor Greene even, right? Anyway, I'm Leslie Marshall. He's Scott Paul. Have a wonderful holiday. I hope Hanukkah was great for Lisa and the kids and you. Merry Christmas to you and the kids as well. I'm Leslie Marshall. Check out the website again, AmericanManufacturing.org. Check out that Made in America holiday gift guide for 2021. All 50 states have people that you can help support as American business owners that make their products here in America. Follow him on Twitter at ScottPaulAAM and follow the AAM at Keep It Made in USA. Love you. Bye.